What's going on, guys? Making this first video just about ball, setting up the project in our Unity and setting up the ball movement. I'm going to start by creating the project. It's going to be 2D project, and I'll name it .game for tutorial. All right, I'll create this, and I'll be back with you guys right when this is done. Alright, what's going on, guys? I'm here in the Unity project now. We've got the very basic setup. Haven't done anything to this project yet. What I'm going to start off by doing is making a couple folders. I'm going to make a folder for scripts. And then I'm going to make another folder for prefabs. 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 And then we're going to start on, that's pretty much all of the project setup I really need to do. As we add in assets, I will point to where they are on the Unity asset store places, but really that's all the project setup we really need to do, is just have a place to put stuff. Now we're going to start with creating the object. The ball we're going to have moving around, so we'll name this object ball. There's a couple things we need to do to this. So we're actually going to make by right clicking on it again, we're going to make it a child object for that ball. And we're going to go to 2D, and we're going to go to sprite. We're going to make a sprite, and this is just going to be the ball's sprite. And we'll add a knob for now. We'll just give it this, and then we'll go back up to the parent object, and we'll give it a collider. A circle collider 2D. Make sure it says 2D too. You don't want it to be the three-dimensional version. And then you collapse that down right onto your circle, and now we've got a circle with a collider. Pretty advanced stuff. And now we're going to make this circle with a collider move. So I'm going to add in a script, actually. It's going to handle all of our movement. And I'm just going to name it ball movement. And then we'll open this up. We'll see how fast my computer can open up Visual Studio. Look at that. We got the ball movement script right here. So let's check it out. First, we want to have a serialized field private reference to a rigid body 2D. 2D, make sure it says 2D too, and then we're going to name that rigid. This serialized field attribute here, it just means that we can see this private field in the inspector. Usually you don't need to have this serialized field if this is a public value variable, but I wanted to make it private, so we're going to have it be serialized field. So perfect. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to make a quick update method. And we're just going to say if input.getKeyDown, and we're going to do a keycode.mouse 0. So if mouse 0 is pressed down, we can execute some code now, and if input.getKeyUp is pressed down, we're going to have some we're going to say keycode.mouse 0. So now, once this key in here, once this is pressed down, we got some code that executes, and then once we get that key up, once we get that mouse 0 up, then this code executes. And mouse 0 is the left click on the mouse. So that's all good now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come down here, we're going to make a private, and we'll just say mouse down. And you'll see it wants to autocomplete to on mouse down. You want to make sure you take that on off. You want it just to be mouse down. And I'll also do a private void mouse up as well. And make sure that is also just mouse up, not out on mouse up, because that will cause some issues later. On mouse up is a method invoked through Unity. But now what we do is we have the mouse down and mouse up. When we press down with our mouse, what we want to do is we want to log that location. We want to record that location for later use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a private vector2 mouse down location. Location. And so what we're going to do is we're going to say right when mouse down is pressed, we're going to set it to input.mouse position. So we have the mouse position when the mouse is down is pressed. And once we mouse up, we just want the difference between the mouse down location and the current location when mouse up is invoked. And so what I'll do is vector2 direction. And I'll even name this add force direction. This is the direction we want to add the force in. And that's actually just going to be this mouse down location minus input.mouse position. So the mouse position when we press this down. And we're going to have to cast this to a vector too, real quick, just so we don't have that error. And so now, looking at this, we can see that we want this to be invoked here. We want mouse down when we press mouse down on a keyboard, and mouse up when we press mouse up. So now I'm going to explain a couple other things that are going on here that I kind of went quickly through. So what we've got here is we've got a rigid body being cached. Rigid body, this variable that we're making right here, is the physics system component that Unity offers for us. And it's very, very nice to use. I do not recommend making your own physics system. The rigid body system is great. And this right here, what we have is a vector 2. Now, if you haven't messed around with Unity too much, you might not know what this vector 2 is. And so this vector 2 is just an x and y value. In 3D, you'll see vector 3s. There'll be an x, y, and z value. But this is just an x and y value of anything. But what we're using it as here is just locations on the screen. And so what we've got, what we're doing is we're caching this x and y value, this direction between the mouse values of when we press the mouse button down and when we press it up. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do rigid.addForce. Rigid.addForce. There we go. Add force direction. And so we want this ball to fly in this direction. And so what we could actually do is we could now also implement another serialized private variable. We'll have this one be a float, and we'll name it force. So now, through the editor, we will be able to update what this value is, this force's value. Right now it's set to 1, but later we can set it to whatever we want through the inspector, and we'll have it fly out in that direction based on that force. Perfect. So now we have this base class in. There's really not a ton of code in this, but once we go back to Unity, and we will click on this ball, and we will add in our component that we just made. So we'll name that ball movement. And what you see here is we need a rigid body. Like we were talking about earlier, the physics component, we need that rigid body. So we're going to add that rigid body 2D. And we're going to drag and drop that right there. So now what we've got going on here is a couple components. We've got our ball movement component, which we wrote ourselves just a second ago. That's the script we were in. And then what we've got is a circle collider and a rigid body. These are both implemented by Unity. So this is the only one we've messed with right now. And so what you're going to see now is when I press play, sorry, I keep saving because that's just a habit, you'll see the ball drops. And now if I set this gravity scale, or if I remove this rigid body, you'll see when I click play, the ball won't drop, it'll stand there. So that rigid body is giving the ball the gravity. So I'm going to add that again actually, just so I can show you guys. So now because we have this rigid body, we've got gravity now. And what we can also do is add a force. See, the force was very small there. We'll change this add force to 10. So now when we add a force, ooh, maybe a little too high, 3. We can see that it flies in the direction though, the direction of our mouse movement. See, there we go. We got the mouse movement and we can shoot the ball in whatever direction we want it to go. We've already pretty much got a game here. Obviously there needs to be some more to it, but we've got the ball moving around. In the next video, I'm going to be setting up a bit of environment stuff and be working with a bit of collision stuff. If you guys are excited for that video, or if you guys are excited for any bit of the series, you know, if you don't appreciate leaving a like and subscribing to get any notifications and stuff, that would be great as well. But without further ado, let's get into that next video. Thanks, guys.